we'll talk to Sal Pao about a stirring win in the Big Easy and a chance this week for the Eagles to erase a very bad memory. Sean Green has your Week 4 spreads and props, and we'll also ask him, are parlays really a good bet? Bill Reinhard has your Week 4 starts and sits and a return of the running back, fantasy football. And Gary Myers on Jerry Jones, the Commanders are back, and a very interesting NFC East. We're going to do all that on a Week 4 edition of This Week in Pro Football.
It's time for This Week in Pro Football, a deep dive into the key issues and marquee matchups in the National Football League. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to sit back or lean in with host Pat Callahan as we preview the week's Eagles matchup, big games, breaking stories, and all news NFL. It's This Week in Pro Football, right now on JAKIB Media Sports.
All right, welcome everybody to Week 4, This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan joining you here on JAKIB Sports. Give me a follow on X at TWIPF Pat. You can follow the network at JAKIB Sports. An action-packed show for you tonight, and I appreciate you joining me after a week off. Thank you all very much. It's great to be back here in the saddle at JAKIB Sports as we talk about Week 4 in the National Football League. Sal Powell's going to be joining me in just a few minutes. I have a ton, as usual, to talk to Sal about, including that win in New Orleans, and then we will preview Week 4. The Eagles going to Tampa Bay. The Bucs are going to be in a bad mood, and Sal Powell, as usual, will zero in on what Todd Bowles likes to do. He likes to do on any given Sunday, but he certainly loves to do it against Jalen Hurts. We'll talk about that. Later on, we'll talk some spreads and some props with Sean Green. We got Bill Reinhard to talk some fantasy football, and Gary Myers will wrap it up as we talk about the NFC East and a suddenly interesting Commanders team, which is something I haven't said probably in the 25 years I've been doing this show. But for now, Xander, let's bring up the standings after Week 3. I want to do a little good, the bad, and the ugly here. And it's really all in the standings. All right. The good, how about those Carolina Panthers? They look like they were 0-17 for sure. Andy Dalton comes off the bench, 319 yards and 3 touchdowns as Carolina really beats the Las Vegas Raiders on the road. Carolina looked terrific. Dalton looked terrific. I'm not saying Carolina is going to the NFC Championship game, but it's nice to see the Panthers get off the mat. Denver, the LA Rams, the New York Giants, the Baltimore Ravens all get their first win. They all badly needed it. We'll talk to Sal about that. We'll talk to him about which 3-0 teams he believes in and which ones he doesn't. And the Eagles get a statement win in New Orleans. We'll talk to Sal about that. I thought it was a terrific win for the Eagles, and I thought there was some decidedly dirty play by the Saints that I think the NFL is taking a look at. That play involving Devonta Smith, I thought was just horrible. Another 2 Saints were guilty of fouls on that particular play, but I have to see if Smith's going to be ready. That is a big question relative to Week 4 in Tampa Bay. The bad, those Jacksonville Jaguars getting absolutely demolished by the Buffalo Bills. You notice there's only 3 0-3 teams in the NFL right now. They're all in the AFC, and 2 of them are in the AFC South, which I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, since the NFL went to this divisional format in 2002, the AFC South has been, without a doubt, the cesspool of the NFL. They just can't play good football in that division. And it looks like another year in which you're going to see this. Jacksonville off to a terrible start. Doug Peterson has to be looking at his mortgage balance right about now because it just doesn't look like Trevor Lawrence is going to turn the corner in Jacksonville. The Cincinnati Bengals, a shocking 0-3 and a shocking loss Monday night to the Commanders. I thought it was great for Washington to go in there and win that game, but certainly Cincinnati has something missing. And the usual, I focused on it a lot 2 weeks ago. I can't get off it. The $230 million man, Deshaun Watson, 196 yards passing against one of the worst pass defenses in football, the New York Giants. And he's just terrible. And the Browns are lost for years because of that contract. The ugly is in Dallas. The Cowboys really apparently missed the boat on what they were doing in their backfield for 2024. 17 carries for 52 yards against Baltimore. Slightly worse than what Derrick Henry did, 28 for 151. The Cowboys have no running game at all, and they have no cap space right now to fix it. We'll talk to Sal about that. We'll talk to Gary Myers about it. But there's always seemingly something ugly brewing in Dallas. Now, maybe a New York Giants pass defense might cure a lot of that. But the Cowboys not nearly as strong, I think, as people thought they were going to be. So you look at those standings right there. You see there is Minnesota at 3-0, Seattle at 3-0 in the NFC. Both very surprising. The NFC is officially wide open for business, ladies and gentlemen. The Eagles and the Commanders tied in the East. Tampa slides at 2-1 after a horrible performance at home against Denver. The Buccaneers just did not show up in that game. And Detroit, Green Bay at 2-1. Green Bay goes 2-0 without their starting quarterback. That's a warning shot, certainly, to the rest of the teams in the NFC North. The AFC, Buffalo always starts off with their foot on the gas. We'll see how that plays out. Josh Allen, though, is a force of nature. He's just a force of nature right now. Pittsburgh, a very surprising 3-0. We got a minute, Xander. Let's bring that down. Let's take a look at the Week 4 schedule really quick. Some good games for this week. The Thursday nighter has Dallas at New York. You've got Cincinnati going at 0-3, going to suddenly resurgent Carolina. That'll be an interesting game. Big game in the NFC North. Minnesota at Green Bay. Is Minnesota really a 3-0 team? I guess we're going to find out. Philadelphia is at Tampa Bay. That is a big game, certainly big game for both of those teams. Washington and Arizona should be an interesting game. One of the highest point totals for the week. And then you get Sunday night, you got Buffalo at Baltimore. That's a very good game. Buffalo is really playing downhill football, but the Ravens right the ship last Sunday in Dallas. And then 2 games Monday night, the moribund Titans at Miami, and a good game, Seattle at Detroit. All right, Xander, thank you very much. Let's bring on this gentleman. Of course, you all know him, the author of How Football Explains America, the longtime host. How you doing, Sal?
How are you, Pat? Good to see you back in the big chair, Pat.
All right. I appreciate that, Sal, very much. And thanks for all your help over the last couple of weeks, Sal. You are, without a doubt. Those of you watching don't know what a real gentleman Sal Paolantonio is, but I can vouch. All right, Sal, a very gutsy win in New Orleans for Philadelphia. Just give me a comment on that in the couple minutes we have before the break. What you saw in that game, especially defensively, from the Eagles.
Well, there's 2 things, Pat, and I'm at NFL Films in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, and we just finished taping the matchup show for this weekend, and we showed 2 things in that game that really worked for the Eagles. Let's start with the defense. It was obviously a Jalen Carter show. Vic Fangio changed a few things on the defensive line, changed to a heavy package, went with 6 defensive linemen often to try to mitigate the running game of the Saints that had beat up the Cowboys pretty bad. And I thought that Zach Bond did a great job in their 2 safeties. So right up the middle, they were very strong. They were like the Yankees of 1936, strong up the middle. And that was the difference. He unleashed Jalen Carter, and I expect him to try to do that against the Bucs, a very weak Bucs offensive line, and a quarterback that has been sacked the most in the NFL, Baker Mayfield. Then on the offensive side, it was a Saquon Barkley show in the 4th quarter. He just took it over. That was a guy who would just beat the defense, great vision, breakaway speed. That was his 3rd fastest run. This guy's got a lot of wear on his tires, and he proved that all of that offseason squat work he did with Jalen Hurts really paid off, because he had some real gas in the tank in that football game.
He certainly did, Sal, and it's a game in which the Eagles really got some injuries, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Mekhi Becton, Lane Johnson, Devonta Smith, and they persevered throughout. But before we get to the break here, just tell me the offensive line. Tell me how you think it shapes up for this Sunday.
Well, you know their record without Lane Johnson. It's not good. And they're under 500 in Lane Johnson's career when he does not play. So he'll be a big loss for them, as he always is. This is a game where they, again, have to lean on the left side of their offensive line. They ran left after Lane Johnson went out of the game, and that was very successful. Jordan Mailata is a very underrated run blocker. He's very good. And I think they got to go heavy in terms of the packages they put on the field. And the other thing is that Jalen Hurts needs to read and react better. Now, I'm going to give you this number, and people need to remember this. This is very important. Jalen Hurts right now is throwing the football 3.2 seconds after the snap. That's the slowest in the NFL this year. That's the slowest in his career. So time to throw of 3.2 seconds, slowest in his career, slowest in the NFL this season. His ability to read and react quickly is almost negligible, and it's really hurting the Eagles' offensive line, because the Eagles' offensive line, according to ESPN Next Gen Stats, the Eagles' offensive line, Pat, has a pass block win rate that's second best in the National Football League. So Hurts is hurting his ability to have a clean pocket.
Yeah. And with that length of time that it's taken him to get rid of the ball, Sal, compounded, and we'll talk after the break, where he might not have his two top wide receivers. That might only get worse this Sunday. When we get back, I'm going to ask Sal too about the head coach's maddening propensity to eschew field goals and embrace analytics. And we'll also talk about how the Eagles are going to roll out a passing game where they might be missing their top two wide receivers. That is all next on a Week 4 edition of This Week in Pro Football.
It was late at night. I was browsing KennedyAuto.com when there was a knock at my door.
Hey, baby, what you doing?
Buying a car from John Kennedy Ford.
Online?
I let her in on the secret. KennedyAuto.com makes car buying easy. That got her attention.
Can I go for a ride?
Let me get my coat. KennedyAuto.com. Enjoy your ride.
Discover the essence of true community banking with First Bank, your trusted partner across eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Their network of branches brings you convenient access to dedicated personal bankers who understand your unique needs. At First Bank, you're not just a customer, you're a valued member of the community. Additionally, they are excited to announce the opening of 2 new branches in Media, Pennsylvania and Trenton, New Jersey, bringing their personalized banking services even closer to you. Connect with any member of the team today at their Westchester office, conveniently located at 849 Paoli Pike, or call them at 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC.
Welcome back. This week of Pro Football. Pat Callahan joining you for week number 4 on JAKIB Sports, and always excited to have the great Sal Paolantonio with me to get everybody ready for the National Football League. All right, Sal. The first question, you were kind enough to send me the transcript from the press conference with Nick Sirianni. And the first question he was asked was about, in a very tight game, in a very low-scoring game, his decision not to kick a field goal with 14 seconds to go in the first half against the New Orleans Saints on a 4th and 3. Just give me your thoughts on why this man is so aggressive. And at some point, especially in a game like that, Sal, don't you take the points, especially on the road?
Well, you take the points for sure, on the road for sure, but early in the game too. And what's the most important thing that we have learned on This Week in Pro Football over the last 2 years? And I've said it, and I'll say it again once more with feeling, Pat Callahan. We are in a one-score league. Over the last 2 seasons, the highest percentage in NFL history of games have ended in 1 score or less, 8 points or less. So you've got to take the points. Now, late in the game, you don't kick the field goal and you run time off the clock to force the quarterback to go 90 yards with no time on the clock, with less time on the clock, than to go 70 yards. And he can't spread the ball around and you can attack him. So I think in both cases, those were misguided decisions, to be charitable about it. But you look at the 5 teams right now that are undefeated, they all have one thing in common, Pat. They are winning the close games, and they have a good pass rush. They have a consistent, creative pass rush. Pat, this is the NFL that you and I love. Sacks are a 5-year high. Rushing yards per team per game are their highest since 1983, Pat. We are playing 70s football. Passing yards are at their lowest per team per game since 1992. So what does that tell you? Close games in the NFL, take the points, Pat. Take them whenever you can get them.
There you go. There you go, Sal. I buy off on that 100%. Sal, another residue from the.
All we need is Ray Scott and Pat Summerall.
I could use that. Man, could I use it? Ray Scott. Unfortunately, most of the people.
Come down from the heavens, Pat. Let them come down.
Most of the people watching don't know who Ray Scott was.
Please they know. If they're watching This Week in Pro Football with Pat Callahan, they know who Ray Scott is.
You got it right. Sal, another a bad side effect of the game in New Orleans was the concussion to Devonta Smith. I'd be very surprised if he's able to go. Give me the latest you have on Smith, and also if in fact he doesn't go, how do the Eagles approach their passing game without their top 2 wide receivers?
Well, it's going to be tough. There's no question about it. Here it is Thursday, September 26th, and I just got the Eagles practice report. Lane Johnson didn't practice with a concussion. Devontae Smith didn't practice with a concussion, and A.J. Brown did not practice with a hamstring injury. So they're not trending in the right direction. And that's 3 big losses on offense. And it goes back to what you said before, Pat. You've got to lean on Saquon Barkley. You got to run left like you did against New Orleans. You got to lean on Dallas Goedert. And, Johan Dotson's got to show up at some point. You gave up a draft pick for the young man. He was 5th lowest in the NFL in terms of catches per routes run last year for a reason. The Commanders gave up on him because they drafted a McCaffrey to go in that slot, and they're very happy with him. Right. And Cliff Kingsbury, perfect match for Jayden Daniels. They didn't need a guy who doesn't get open, and Dotson doesn't get open. So, they're going to have to lean on those guys. There's no question about it. And this is a tough game. But the Eagles still are favored to win this game, and I do believe that they will win this game.
At Tampa, as I said in the open, just a terrible performance last week against Denver, Sal. I think Tampa rolled their helmets out there thinking they were going to beat the Broncos without a sweat, and they found out differently 26-7. As you pointed out, the NFL is razor thin these days. You never know when you try it out on the field how you're going to make out. And I think Tampa was surprised. All right, Sal, you also sent me some stats, and one that I thought was particularly interesting, and that is that Jalen Hurts over the 20 games since the start of the 2023 season has the most turnovers in the NFL, 26 in 20 games. Give me your thoughts on Hurts. You mentioned a few minutes ago how he's got the second longest hold rate in terms of the length of time it's taken to get rid of the ball. Just tell me where you think Hurts is right now going into this game.
Now, Pat, to be clear about it, his time to throw is 3.2 seconds. That's slowest in the NFL, slowest. Okay. That's slowest in his career. So he is taking an eternity, snap to release of the football. Right. He's the slowest in the NFL, slowest in his career. That's, in my view, the number one reason he does that he's got the number of turnovers that he does, and that he's in harm's way in the pocket as much as he is, and the fact that he has got to roll out. Guys are open. Now, maybe not Dotson, maybe not Goddard, right. But, A.J. Brown certainly was open a lot in the Green Bay Packer game, and he didn't get the football. Devontae Smith was open. So this is a clear indication that it falls on the quarterback. It falls on the offensive coordinator. He's got a very good quarterbacks coach in Doug Nussmeier and Nick Sirianni. These 3 coaches and that smart quarterback, and he's got a lot of wins despite the fact that he's got so many turnovers. Second most wins and second best winning percentage to Patrick Mahomes in the last 2 years. Right. So he's got a lot of wins, but eventually it's going to catch up with him.
It has to. It has to, and he's got to start getting rid of that ball faster. And they're going into a place where they have some very bad recent memory. It'll be interesting to see how the Eagles do.
Nobody blitzes more than Todd Bowles. If you remember, after the wild card game, I was on your show, and I told the story, Pat. After that game, I went into Todd Bowles' office, and I said, "You're not done blitzing Jalen Hurts, are you?" The game was over. Yeah. And he's sitting there drinking a cup of coffee, smoking a cigar. And he goes, "No, I'm not done." Yeah. I mean, here are the numbers. 4 head-to-head matchups with Todd Bowles. Jalen Hurts has more interceptions, 5, than touchdown passes, 4. Jalen has been contacted 52 times in those 4 games, the most he has against any one team in his career. And Jalen was blitzed 48% of the time. Half the time, Bowles brought the blitz. He's going to bring the blitz on Sunday. It's coming.
Yep. Tampa, through 3 weeks, as you point out here, Tampa is 4th in the NFL in blitz frequency, 37%. It was 59% in the wild card win over the Eagles in January. So you're right. He dials it up against Hurts, and the concern is Hurts now has to respond when that is top 2 wide receivers.
Yeah, but I think, Pat, in this game, the number one matchup that favors the Eagles is the Eagles' defensive line against the Bucs' offensive line that has been hurt a lot. Another guy holding the ball too long is Baker Mayfield. He's been sacked the most in the NFL. I think this is a game where the Eagles' defense can and will dominate.
All right. Sounds like another lower scoring game. Let's kick some field goals, Sal. All right, listen, I want to look around the NFL with you in the few minutes that we have left. I'm very interested in your opinion on a very strong speech that Mike Greenberg made on the show Get Up on ESPN. And it was about Jerry Jones, the general manager. The fact that Jones waited until the national anthem on week 1 to sign Dak Prescott, and the contract he ended up giving CeeDee Lamb just about a week before the season started, Sal, meaning he was paying top dollar. Both contracts were the richest contracts for the position. Whereas had he signed them a year ago, he'd have had that V, right? He wouldn't have paid that premium. So, and Greenberg's point was he could have used that money to sign a Derrick Henry, whereas now the running game that the Cowboys have. I want your thoughts on what Greenberg said. Is it accurate? And should Jerry Jones, the owner, be looking for a new general manager?
That's not going to happen. You can forget that. So we'll throw that out. Right. But let's forget about the money, Pat. The money was always there. It was there for Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and Derrick Henry. He has the money. The money's available. He makes more money than any other franchise in professional sports, including Manchester United and the New York Yankees. Dallas Cowboys, number 1, most valued franchise in the NFL. He has more revenue coming out of that stadium than all the other NFL teams. So he's got cash to pay guaranteed bonuses to players. Money was there for Derrick Henry. Now, I'm not sure Derrick Henry wanted to go to Dallas. I think he's perfectly happy in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. That's another story. But the money was there. It's not about the money. It's about the psychology, Pat. The team has been waiting all summer for Dak Prescott to be made whole. All summer for CeeDee Lamb to be made happy. Right. What are you doing waiting all summer to the doorstep of the season until you flip the light switch on for your football team?
Yeah.
Money is psychology for these players. They see it. They see other players getting paid. The money is there through the NFL's marriage with betting, sports betting. The money's there from television. The money is there. That's not the issue. The issue is, how do you manage the money to make your team happy? This is one of the geniuses of Howie Roseman. He's made some mistakes personnel-wise. I get that. But you got to give him his due, that he went out and he made A.J. Brown happy. He made Smith happy. He made Mailata happy. He made all of these players. He made Saquon Barkley happy. Look how it's paying off for this football team, Pat.
You got it right, Sal. All right,
Sal. It's psychology, Pat. It's all about the psychology, man. All right.
Here, I want some psychology from you right now, Sal. We got 2 minutes left. I'm going to name you the 5 3-0 teams. You already rattled them off. I want you to tell me whose Kool-Aid you're drinking at 3-0.
Okay.
Do you believe in the Minnesota Vikings?
Absolutely, yes. 2 thumbs up.
And Brian Flores has done a hell of a job with that defense. And Sam Darnold, I think he's just escaped from New York, Sal. Escaped from New York for Sam. Kansas City, I'm not surprised, Sal, 3-0. They got the best quarterback in the world.
They have the best quarterback in the world. But, Pat, they are not in the top 10 in any defensive or offensive category. Yeah. Travis Kelce has 11 targets, Pat, and they're 3-0.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
And they got a coach and a quarterback that knows
how
to win. That's it. Are you surprised, and are you buying off on the 3-0 Seattle Seahawks?
Not yet. I want to see Geno play an entire year. But when you look at that defense that Mike McDonald put together, it's the same defense that the Baltimore Ravens ran. He just brought it out to Seattle.
A big game for them Monday night, Sal, in Detroit. That could be a statement game for the Seahawks.
Oh, yeah.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, Sal, have to be the worst of the 3-0 teams. The Steelers are 3-0, maybe just by scheduling. But I just can't buy off on that offense.
Well, raise your hand if you had the Steelers 3-0 with Justin Fields. I mean, come on, who had that?
Right.
I mean, you did that. You know, you're living high on the hog somewhere. Yeah. You're going to steak dinners for the next 2 weeks. But Pat, look at the defense. They've given up 8.7 points a game, Pat. You give up less than 10 points a game, you're going to win all your football games. I don't care who's playing quarterback.
Right.
You only have to score a touchdown and a field goal to win. Right. 8 points. You know, Terrell Austin, their defensive coordinator, very underrated. They have one of the best pass rushers in TJ Watt. They already have Minka Fitzpatrick. They stole Patrick Queen from Baltimore to play the middle of the field at linebacker. Watch that defense, Pat.
All right. And the last is the Buffalo Bills. I think they always come out of the chute like a Kentucky Derby horse grabs the rail. But then, at some point, the reliance on Josh Allen just wears them out. Give me your thoughts on the Bills.
Well, they're not. This year, Joe Brady is definitely running the ball more. They've been running out of heavy packages. Their number of snaps in the run game is at 57% over 3 weeks, which is very good. I mean, the Jaguars didn't put up much of a resistance whatsoever. This game in Baltimore will be a lot different, and we'll see exactly where the Buffalo Bills are after this game. But, the one team that we haven't mentioned, and we'll mention them next week, is the New York Jets.
Right.
Pat, I watched them on tape. Pat, I'm telling you, the defense looks very, very good, very active. Yeah. And Aaron Rodgers is throwing the ball with great accuracy from the pocket and on the run.
Jets could be trouble. It's going to be an interesting
trouble.
I think the two East. Well, I think the NFC East is going to be very interesting this year, Sal. I think the AFC East, Buffalo and the Jets are going to have a hell of a run in the AFC. It's about time we started talking about those.
Yeah, and you remember I was on your show on 1210, and I said Cliff Kingsbury and the Commander. You asked me for a surprise team. Yeah. I said Jaden Daniels is perfect for Cliff Kingsbury. Perfect. Now, losing Eckler like they have is going to be tough. That'll be a setback. It's one game. I get it. One game.
All right, listen, Sal, thanks very much. So you gave me a ton of time today. I appreciate it. You're a hell of a gentleman, and I certainly appreciate you taking all the time and all the information. And
I'll send you the bill, Pat. No problem. You'll send.
I look forward to talking to you again.
We'll go to breakfast at Uncle Bill's down in Ocean City.
All right. Thanks again, Sal. Appreciate it very much, pal.
All right. See you.
All right, Sal Paolantonio joining me there. Thanks again, Sal. When we get back, another distinguished gentleman ensconced out in Vegas. That's the great Sean Green. We're going to talk about some props and some spreads and parlays. We'll do that all next on This Week in Pro Football.
Welcome to Park Bank, a return to better banking. With 7 locations across Philadelphia and South Jersey, we prioritize your financial well-being with a blend of modern amenities and traditional customer service. Our professional team is dedicated to providing tailored banking solutions, whether you are opening your first account, planning for retirement, or expanding your business. Our services include a wide range of personal and business banking options with competitive deposit rates and products. We are committed to making your banking experience experience seamless and efficient with the latest technology at your fingertips and the personalized support you deserve. Park Bank, your community. For more information, go to parkbank.com. That's Park, P-A-R-K-E, bank.com. Member FDIC. Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated is the concrete cutting specialist in the Philadelphia area since 1995, and they've become the specialist in the Pittsburgh area as well. These guys are celebrating 28 years as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. So if you have a project that requires any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition, or interior excavating, call the specialist, Concrete Cutting Systems, located at 2514 Orthodox Street in the heart of Philly. Call them at 215-533-0652. With a fleet of over 70 service trucks, Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated is always ready to service all of your concrete cutting, drilling, and concrete demolition and highway sealing needs. These guys are the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. So don't delay. Call the boys today at 215-533-0652. And be sure to check them out on Facebook and Instagram at CCSINC_Phila or on the web at concretecuttingsystems.net.
Welcome back. This week in pro football, Pat Callahan joining you here, week 4 of the National Football League here on JAKIB Sports. Don't forget, give me a follow on X at TWIPFPat. You can, I hope, enjoy my riveting commentary throughout the NFL week, and especially on game days. I'd love to hear what you have to say about both the show and the league in general. How about we bring this guy on, Xander, please? And that is the host of the Sports Gambling Podcast, which I recommend everybody check out for your WNBA playoff forecast, and that's the great Sean Green. Sean, how you doing?
Hey, what's happening, Pat? Good to be back. Good to see you. Yeah, I mean, we do cover everything on SGPN from, honestly, if you can gamble on it, we got picks for you. WNBA show has been doing well, but you know, I'm locked in on the National Football League, as they like to say.
That is, you got to check this website out, ladies and gentlemen. This guy, he's as well-schooled a degenerate as is out there. So kudos to Sean Green for that. All right, I wanted to ask you this right off the bat, Sean, and because you know, in the 1,200 or so ads that air during football games each week for betting websites, and it's seemingly every network, everybody has their own website right now, or sports gambling facility. The prominent thing that I think that's pushed is parlays. I'm talking about as far as the NFL is concerned, parlays. I want to get your opinion on this. For the average guy sitting there on his couch, are parlays a good bet?
Well, you know, it depends on what your definition of good is, right, Pat? So, I mean that in you know, kind of joking, but also seriousness. Like, people always ask me, they're like, "Hey, how much should I bet?" Blah blah blah. Well, first off, I'm not gonna, you know, it's your money, so you have to figure that out. But a healthy way to look at it, especially if you're not doing this as a full-time job, and I wouldn't recommend, you know, professional gambling as a full-time job out of nowhere. You know, whatever the money you set aside to go out and have a couple beers, or you go out to the movies, or you go out to dinner, like that should be the money, like where the gambling money that you're using, that should be a part of that budget. So, you know, don't go crazy. And yeah, I think it's good in the sense that it's like, hey, entertaining.
Right. If
you're looking for a $5, I would much rather play a crazy $5 parlay than a $5 scratcher down at Wawa. You know, that's me. That's an
excellent point. It's an excellent point. If it's $5, $10, I think you're exactly right. But if somebody's putting up 50 or putting up 100, the parlays become a little more skittish, in your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, again, like the think about it. Anytime you go to a casino and they're offering you more things, why are they offering you more things? Because the more things have better odds for them. Where, what is the best way to win money at casino is like, go to the blackjack, play exactly how the card says, go to craps, play exactly the pass line. Right. And even then the house still has an edge, but it has the smallest edge. Right. And that applies with sportsbooks as well. Shop around, find the best number for the bet you want to make. In the NFL, just take sides or totals. Those are going to be the sharpest numbers out there. And you truly almost have even if you're you always see those animals picking games against the spread. You have a pretty close chance of going 50-50, and it's a fun way to pass the day. But yeah, if you're going crazy, we call them pizza bets. Hey, whatever you're going to spend on a couple slices of pizza, that's what you go on the crazy bets. They're fun to talk about, but you're not going to hit a ton of them.
Well done. All right. Give me some week 4, if you have any, Sean. I'm talking about trends. You and I have talked in previous shows about our officials putting their thumb on games. Is that something to certain officiating crews? Is that worth looking at? Are there still trends going on relative to road teams versus home teams? Is there anything you're seeing through 3 weeks that struck you in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, the big one that's been killing everyone's survivor leagues have been these NFL underdogs. Underdogs of 6 points or more are 12-1 against the spread, but more importantly, 8-5 straight up. So all those big underdogs have been barking. They've been winning. This is actually the first time in 70 years where the biggest underdog in each of the first 3 weeks all won outright. 2 of which was against the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Cincinnati Bengals are responsible for basically no more survivor pools in America, because most everyone, if they didn't take them week 1, they might have taken them week 3. And the Bengals got you one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely right, Sean. That's an excellent piece of information, what you just said there about the dogs. You think it's going to continue, or do you think that these teams are now done with the preseason part of the NFL schedule and their favorites will start to level that out a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, eventually we're going to get a little bit of correction. It might not all be in 1 week. But it's interesting though. Like, you haven't seen it in the pricing yet, as far as like, oh, this team should be a huge underdog, but they're worried they're going to win outright. We're going to reduce the line. Like, they really haven't adjusted the pricing quite yet. But to your point, the sloppiness we've seen in the first 3 weeks, you got Mel Kiper yelling about too high safety destroying the league. It's just sloppiness is really what it is. These guys are playing themselves into shape. You have a ton of new coordinators across the league. Look at any of these teams. It's the teams with continuity that I heard you and Sal talking about the Bills. They actually had a bunch of continuity minus Stephon Diggs. And I think that's one of the reasons they've hit the ground running. So to your point, a lot of teams, kind of figure it out in September. I mean, the Pats and, Bill Belichick, that was their formula. I mean, you remember a number of slow starts where they were ready to dig the grave for the New England Patriots. And then, of course, they would peak late. Like a lot of good teams do. So we'll see. I still think there's some frisky dogs this week, but eventually the market kind of balances itself out.
Sean Green, presented by the great folks at Concrete Cutting Systems. Remember, check them out. Sports Gambling Podcast. Their week 4 NFL picks for week 4 is up. It's always an entertaining view with him and Ryan Kramer. And Ryan managed to find Tampa Bay plus 2.5. You managed to find Philadelphia minus 1. I don't know what the hell's.
So yes, on the pick sheet, which is and shout out to our picks provider, Tally Site, you can say, find me the best odds. And you want to go back to, getting the best price, especially in the great state of Pennsylvania. There are a number of operators. So there's a bunch of websites, tools that'll say like, hey, I want to bet on the Eagles this week. I want to bet against them. And they'll show you like, okay, this book has the best price for that bet. So always shop around.
Well, tell me, Sal and I had a lengthy discussion about the Eagles-Bucks game. Eagles are probably going to be without their top 2 wide receivers, perhaps without 2 offensive linemen. Their defense played very well against the Saints. Tampa coming off a terrible, terrible loss at home to Denver. Give me your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I'm a bit biased, and if you're making the case for Tampa Bay, you'd point out the Eagles' win-loss record without Lane Johnson is always pretty rough. The Eagles do have the bye right around the corner, so if guys were close to coming back, certainly you could see a case to be a little cautious with maybe an A.J. Brown hamstring or something like that. The case for the Eagles, and we saw it was a huge reason why they won against the Saints, the defensive line had an awesome game. Jalen Carter, probably the best game of his career. And the interior offensive line of the Tampa Bay Bucks has really struggled last week and has kind of struggled in general. You saw the physicality of the Broncos defense really put a number on this Bucks team. And I would just say the matchup that really favors this Eagles team is the defensive side of the ball. Quinyon Mitchell is playing at a veteran level for a rookie quarterback. So that was an awesome pick for the Eagles. He's looked really good. And I think they're going to be able to slow down the Bucks. I think this is going to be a very ugly game. And yes, Jalen Hurts has struggled a little bit with turnovers, but you saw it when Devonta Smith got knocked out. You saw it when Darius Slay got the late hit out of bounds. This team is kind of rallying around each other in spite of Nick Sirianni's super questionable play calling and pulling out what's left of my hair. This team is playing for each other, and I think that's what you need in a back-to-back road spot here.
You like the under here, Sean?
Yeah, I certainly can't talk anyone into an over. I just don't see it. Bucks defense is okay. I think the Eagles without Lane Johnson and their two receivers will struggle a little bit to move the ball. This is going to be a 17-13 type game.
I agree with that. All right, Sean Green, let me hit you with a couple other ones here, and you give me some rapid fire on
sure.
Arizona hosting Washington is one of the highest numbers of the week. You like the Cardinals here? Tell me why.
Yeah, I'm laying the Cardinals with the 3.5 points. To me, this is a fade of Jaden Daniels looked awesome. Everyone's hyping him up, rightly so. But this is a tough spot. You go on the road in Cincinnati. Now in a short week, you go back home. Then you go out on the road in the desert there. I think Jonathan Gannon is going to know how to play a Cliff Kingsbury offense. I think Kyler Murray might be a little motivated for this. And yes, the Washington Commanders did not punt in that game, but they also didn't force a punt on the other side. I think at some point this offense run by a rookie quarterback is going to hit a couple speed bumps, and really they have no margin for error. In both games where they didn't punt, they almost lost each game. So I think the Cardinals get it done.
Sean, Minnesota 3-0, a very surprising 3-0 team. Now they travel to Green Bay. Jordan Love I think he's going to play. I think he wants to get back in there. Green Bay goes 2-0 without him. Who are you a believer in here? Are you a believer in Sam Darnold, or you must be? I think you like Minnesota here, plus the point.
Yeah. And to me, it's I do think Sam Darnold's due for a little bit of a regression. I don't think he's going to end up being the MVP this season, although his numbers certainly look like that. To me, this is more about Brian Flores' defense, which is playing at an incredibly high level. This guy got called out by 2 in the offseason. He seems like he has a chip on his shoulder, and a guy who definitely has a chip on his shoulder, Aaron Jones, very upset the Packers decided to move on from him. You see these Aaron Jones games where he clearly gets up, like he did in that playoff game against the Cowboys, even against the 49ers for the Packers in the playoffs, and they got rid of him. I think he's going to take that personally. So I think the Vikings will be able to move the ball, and then a banged up Jordan Love on the other side. I think they should play Willis one more week, but I think they are going to play Jordan Love. So I like the Vikings with the points.
All right. Last one I want you to give me for just a minute is I think a big game, big Sunday night game. 3-0 Buffalo travels to 1-2 Baltimore. The Ravens still don't have a lot of margin for error here, Sean. They started off very slowly. Nice win last week, even though they almost blew it in the fourth quarter against Dallas. Tell me how you like this game. Buffalo getting 2.5 against Baltimore.
Yeah, the quote-unquote sharps will be all over Ravens. Hey, this is a good buy spot. Let down on a short week for the Bills. But, man, I cannot bet against the Bills, especially in a situation where they're getting points. The Ravens' offensive line, yeah, they did better against the Cowboys, but they almost let the Cowboys back in this game. They really blew a game against the Raiders. I don't think any lead is safe right now with this Ravens team. Something's going on with them. And then as much as I normally don't factor in a kicker into a matchup in a close game like this, where the spread is 2.5, and you got a guy like Justin Tucker that is just not kicking the ball well anymore. He used to be automatic. He's 2 for 5 from 40. He's missed all his 50-yard field goals. Like, he is just costing them left and right. If you would have hit that early field goal, maybe they wouldn't have lost to the Raiders.
That's right.
Like, in a close game, if you don't trust your kicker, which is crazy to say at Justin Tucker, I think that could be the difference. So I will take the Bills and the points.
I guess Tucker was wishing he was with the Eagles. That way, no one would know whether he'd make them or not.
Yes, exactly. He wouldn't have to. Sirianni would never bring him out there. So
I know he'd be 0 for 0. So I guess he'd be looking for a new contract. Sean Green, thanks a lot for joining me. I appreciate it very much. Where does everybody find you and that gang of yours over the weekend for any last minute info?
So, sportsgamblingpodcast.com, picking every NFL game against the spread. Also a ton of college football as well, even some baseball playoff stuff. If you can bet on it, we're covering it, sportsgamblingpodcast.com.
All right. Sean Green, thank you very much, pal. Talk to you next week.
Great to see you, Pat.
All right, thank you, pal. All right. Sean Green joining me there, presented by Concrete Cutting Systems. This next guy has given me some invaluable advice already over the first few weeks of the season, and I'm looking forward to talking with him again, even though he's got to get that camera fixed, because right now it looks like he's laying down. So, Bill, you got to fix that camera so you're upright. We're going to talk to Bill Reinhard from FantasyGuru.com. We're going to talk some fantasy football. That's next on This Week in Pro Football.
What on earth are you doing? We have dinner reservations in 15 minutes.
I'm trying to figure out who to start in my fantasy football lineup. Every website I check has a different opinion. It's driving me crazy. How do you set your lineup so fast?
I have a secret weapon that will blow your mind.
Wow. What's the secret?
I've been using FantasyGuru.com for all of my fantasy football decisions.
FantasyGuru.com? Isn't that with that crazy guy, Jeff Mans?
You mean the legendary fantasy guru, Jeff Mans? He's a genius. FantasyGuru.com has everything you need to dominate your league. Starts, sits, busts. It's like having a fantasy football expert panel in your corner.
Wow, FantasyGuru.com. But I feel like you're cheating on me.
How do you think I won our league last year? FantasyGuru.com. It'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Join FantasyGuru.com today. Use the code NEW30 for 30% off instant savings.
Evolution Energy Partners has helped hundreds of businesses save millions of dollars on their energy spend. They offer electricity and gas procurement strategies, efficiency audits and engineering and financing solutions, as well as online utility bill management. To learn how your business can save, visit www.evolutionep.com or contact Chuck Herschella at 610-329-8288. Evolution Energy Partners, energy solutions to improve your bottom line.
At Whistler Pearlstein LLP, we assemble the most effective team to handle all of your legal needs. There are players and pretenders, but our hustle and heart set us apart. In practice now for over 75 years, we're proud to be one of the most prominent full-service law firms in the Philadelphia region. We offer 17 different areas of practice, including business, corporate, and tax education law, real estate, zoning, and land development, municipal law, and litigation. Our top-rated attorneys and staff are laser-focused on client success. We strive to provide outstanding legal counsel with the highest level of care and consideration. Let us show you the Whistler way. Learn more at WhistlerPearlstein.com or email Michael J. O'Donohue at mod@WhisPearl.com. WhistlerPearlstein.com or mod@WhisPearl.com.
Welcome back to This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan joining you here, week 4 of the National Football League on JAKIB Sports. And let's bring this guy on here, Xander, who's already been a big help to me, and that is from FantasyGuru.com, SiriusXM. And he's a contributor for the New York Daily News, and that's Bill Reinhard. Bill, how you doing, pal?
Good. I know my phone is screwed up. I'm working on it. Sorry.
Let's go now. It looked like you were going to go on IR there for a minute.
Yeah, I know. It's all right.
You're back and ready to go, and you're feeling really good. The Bills are 3-0 and just got off an absolute demolition of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Bill, everybody, if you've got a Jacksonville Jaguar in your fantasy lineup, you're going to lose. I mean, is that fair to say, Bill?
Well, I do have Christian Kirk as a sleeper. They have to go to him. They have to throw to him. They have to stop fooling around. They got away from him in the first couple of weeks, and they just have to start. He always averages 15 points a game when they throw to him. So I really think this is the weekend. If you have Christian Kirk, get him in your lineup.
I'm trying to build a theory, Bill, that the worse your uniform is, the worse your team is. And I think Jacksonville might have the single worst uniform in the NFL. Those black numbers, I mean, they look absolutely stupid. And, when they first came in the league, they had a good uniform. It was primarily teal with black, and it worked. Yeah. Now, I think they're a mess. I don't know, Billy. I don't know how it works. But
it makes a difference. The way a man dresses, he's always better when he dresses better. We know
that's right. If the Bills go back to that standing buffalo, they're going all the way, Bill.
They haven't used that helmet in a couple of years, even for throwback.
I know. All right, Bill, let's start with this. We're 3 weeks in, which is not, I know, a big sample, but still enough for some trends to develop. Give me your biggest surprises through week 3. What has caught you in terms of pleasant surprises? What did you see happening that you didn't expect to happen at the start of the season?
Well, the biggest surprise really has been Saquon Barkley. I mean, I knew he was good. I followed him at Penn State, and the Giants. The Giants paid the wrong guy. I mean, they paid Daniel Jones. Yeah. They chose not to pay Barkley, and they're paying for it because they're paying for it the wrong way. Barkley, he's the number 1 running back in the NFL. He's the number 1 running back in fantasy. He's running, he's catching, and he wasn't the first running back taken in the draft. He was like maybe the 4th, 5th, 6th running back, and he is just blown us away. And if he had caught that pass in the flat there a week ago, he'd have been even more. But anyway, that was a pleasant surprise. He's been terrific.
Are you drinking the Sam Darnold Kool-Aid, Bill? 4 touchdown passes last week as Minnesota easily won that game. Only one I was disappointed to tell you in Justin Jefferson.
Right.
But still, Darnold looks awful good now that he's escaped from New York.
He does look good. And we've talked about him before. I like him. He's first-round draft pick, but everywhere he went, he was sabotaged. He was hamstrung by his coordinators and the lack of talent around him, and they just gave up on him and they shipped him out. And, he had a cup of coffee in Carolina and then in San Francisco, but he's in a system that works. He's got talent around him. He's got Jefferson. He's got the running backs. He's got Jalen Naylor, the kid receiver, who's really come around in Addison's place. So, there's nothing wrong with Darnold. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, and I think he beats the Packers this weekend too.
Another guy who's caught my eye, maybe a team in general, Bill, is the Arizona Cardinals. So I thought always were just a moribund franchise. And God, talk about uniforms. They had those god-awful all-black things on last week. A team called the Cardinals wearing all black.
Right.
Now it's ending. Their offense, though, is playing pretty well. Do you think that's something that's going to sustain?
I do. I always write off James Conner every year. I'm like, that guy drives me nuts. Can't stand him. And he always comes out of the gate full throttle. He will get hurt. He's going to get hurt either this game or the next game. He'll be out for 3 weeks, but then he'll be back. But you got Murray, you got the rookie Harrison. They are the real deal. They handled Detroit well last week. I thought it would be a different result, but I think that I'm all on the Murray bandwagon. We in one of our leagues, one guy he loaded up on receivers and running backs, and we're all laughing at him because he was the last guy to take a quarterback, and he gets Kyler Murray. So, congratulations, Ryan. The cardiac kids are doing very well with Murray as quarterback.
Talking with Bill Reinhard from FantasyGuru.com and the New York Daily News. Bill, let me hit you with some. Let's talk about Week 4 now, and I'm going to hit you with some people that I think I'm looking for guys who might be due for a breakout, and I want you to give me an up or down if you think this is coming. All right.
Okay.
One, Breece Hall. He's really. His numbers have been okay, but for the most part, he was the top running back behind Christian McCaffrey off the board in most leagues. And he really hasn't had a statement game yet. And I know it's only been 3 weeks, but this other kid that the Jets are running looks awful good too. But is there a chance week 4 you see a Breece Hall breakout game?
So, it's funny because when you take a franchise back early and you want him to be the bell cow, and Breece Hall is not going to be that 25-yard carry guy as long as Braylon Allen's in the backfield. It's going to be a 70-30. And actually, if you have Breece Hall, you want that. You can sacrifice a couple of points a game so that he doesn't have to carry the ball 30 times a week and he doesn't last 17 weeks. So enjoy the ride. When Allen comes in and gives Hall a breather, I think we just have to say that's a good thing, less a chance of injury. But he is the number 3 fantasy back as far as points scored. So he hasn't crushed it. He hasn't had that killer game, but he's got 20 points every game. And if he has that kind of consistency, he's just, I would love to have him on my team.
All right. Monday night, the Detroit Lions host the Seattle Seahawks. The Lions are a different team at home than they are on the road, Bill. And Jared Goff a whopping 3 touchdown passes in 3 weeks. You see, perhaps the Lions are going to bust out, albeit though a pretty good 3-0 Seattle defense.
Yeah, but it's misleading because Seattle, they played the Broncos with Bo Nix, they played Jacoby Brissett with the Pats, and last week they played the Dolphins with Skyler. So their defense, if you look at your little fantasy lineups and you say, the Seattle defense, they're the number 1 against the pass or number 2 against the run. It's so misleading. They haven't played anybody yet. Detroit is going to blow the doors off of Seattle on Monday night. I'm telling you, they're going to come in overconfident with their record, but they have not played anyone of Detroit's caliber this year.
All right. That's a fair enough comment, Bill. So you're saying get your Lions in.
Get your Lions in.
Get
your Lions in. Yeah, here you go. Get Jameson Williams in, all right?
Bill, give me your thoughts on the Green Bay Packers fantasy players now. I'm talking about really the wide receivers who really you've probably been benching the last 2 weeks with Malik Willis there, even though the Packers did win them both.
Right.
But it's still not quite sure about whether they're going to be using Jordan Love or not. Give me your thoughts on loading up with Packers this week.
Right. So Jordan Love, they say they're going to go all the way up to game time before they decide if he's playing or not. Last year in his last game against him, he threw for like 4 touchdowns, over 300 yards. So we know what he can do against Minnesota. But Minnesota, they are ferocious defense. They have 16 sacks. I think they're the best pass rush team in the NFL right now. If Jordan doesn't have his mobility, I bench every receiver. If Malik Willis is in, I don't start the receivers. I love Reed. Romeo Doubs. Every time I write off Romeo Doubs, he has 90 yards and a touchdown. So I'm writing him off this weekend. So everybody make sure he's in your lineup. He's guaranteed to have 90 yards and a touchdown. Yeah. But if Love's not playing, it's hard enough if he's playing. If Love's not playing, I don't see any of those receivers doing well.
Okay. All right. And speaking of now, we get to the trapdoor portion of the program now, Bill. I want to know if you're pulling the trapdoor on these 3. I heard all preseason, Bill, Anthony Richardson. Oh, you got to get him. He's top 5 quarterback. I did not buy it. I don't think he looks good at all. Are you still going to wait and see on the Colts quarterback?
He hasn't had more than 10 completions in any game this year. I mentioned Adonai Mitchell, I think week 1 or week 2, because Richardson missed him on wide open 50-yard bombs. He's just not there. He's not that accurate for an NFL quarterback standards. Yeah, he'll get points with his legs. So people are, they're turned on by that with the fantasy aspect with his legs. But, you can't trust him as a passer. Michael Pittman's has just been wasted. He's invisible. So I agree with you with the Richardson. He's never going to be on my lineup. He should be on everybody's benches until he can prove he can throw.
I have, for the many, many years I've done this show, Bill, I have posited forever that if you took Joe Montana, Johnny Unitas, Joe Namath, John Elway, anyone, and stuck a Bears helmet on them, they would immediately be terrible. There's something about the Bears helmet that is almost like, remember the old Jim Carrey movie, The Mask? You put it on and just something goes wrong.
Right.
Give me your thoughts on that Bear offense. Caleb Williams right now is getting a dose of this. And they looked absolutely inept last week against Indianapolis. Do you have any hope for the Chicago Bears offense?
Well, now they're saying, they're giving up on Swift and Herbert. Now Roschon Johnson's the flavor of the week. They say he's going to get the ball. How about you guys just block and pass and complete some passes and work your way down the field? Caleb Williams, I mean, he is so highly touted, but he needs a little more time. They expect him to come in and be Dan Marino and just be able to wing it all over the field. It hurts that Keenan Allen hasn't been on the field a lot to help him. He finally found Cole Kmet last week, which I think he's got to go to more. So I pumped the brakes on all the Bears. I know, and I love their helmet, by the way. I think it's just classic. But
you don't have to wear it.
I don't have to wear it. Yeah. But I do. I pump the brakes on the Bears.
The last one I want to hit you with here, I see Gary Myers is in the wings. You can't keep these Hall of Famers waiting, Bill.
Hey, Gary.
But is the Dolphins wide receivers. I mean, Tua is going to be out a number of weeks. And people are still talking about, stick with Tyreek Hill. I understand that logic because you never know when he's going to catch a 12-yard pass and go off. But, I mean, is that a good fantasy strategy? What do you do, Bill, with a Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle?
Well, it's funny because in the Daily News today, I benched them both in my column. And I said, until they bring back Marino or Don Strock or Bob Greasy or Earl Morrall, then I'm not putting them in my lineup. It's just not safe. You can't do it. And I don't even know who they're rolling out there this week. It's a tale of two guys. I
think it's Tim Boyle.
Boyle,
yeah. That should work. That should work good, Bill.
So no, I'm running from that. And, you might not have better options, but no, I'd rather get a guy that's going to get 6 or 7 passes than the possibility Hill gets 1 and breaks it.
All right, Bill Reinhard, where does everybody find you this weekend so they can get some last minute? I've said it now twice. I can vouch for this guy. He has steered me right both times. So where would everybody try and find Bill Reinhard and what he's got to say for this fantasy?
So on Twitter, it's NFL Fantasy Bill. You can see me there. You can find my columns today in the New York Daily News. And my column for the Fantasy Guru came out today as well. And it's funny because Seth was talking about Survivor Leagues, and that's what my column is on. It's about the everyone drowning in the Survivor pool so far.
What the Cincinnati Bengals did to Survivor Leagues this year should be against the law, Bill.
And that's the thing. Do you know in the U.S., there's only 30% of all Survivor entrants left, and it's only week 4.
How about that?
There's your stat for the day.
That I believe. All right, Bill Reinhard, thanks very much for joining me, Bill. It's always a great conversation. Look forward to talking to you again next week, all right?
Thanks. Be well, Pat. Go Bills.
All right. Bill Reinhard joining me there. Thank you very much to Bill. When we get back, I want to talk some NFC East football, and who better to do it with than a guy who covered the NFC East for the New York Daily News and the Dallas Morning News and wrote a book called Once a Giant on the New York Giants, and that would be the great Gary Myers. We'll do that next to wrap up week 4 of This Week in Pro Football.
Somewhere on the blue planet lies a hidden gem, nestled in the heart of lush greenery. Where the game of golf takes on a new meaning. At Spring Mill Country Club, we offer an unparalleled golfing experience. Our meticulously maintained course is designed to challenge and delight golfers of all levels. But that's not all. Spring Mill is also the perfect venue for your most cherished celebrations. From intimate gatherings to grand weddings, our elegant banquet facilities provide the perfect backdrop for your special day. With exquisite cuisine, personalized service, and breathtaking surroundings, every event at Spring Mill becomes a cherished memory. Let us be a part of your journey, whether it's a round of golf, a celebration, or a once-in-a-lifetime wedding. Spring Mill Country Club, where every moment is extraordinary. Visit us today and create your unforgettable story.
It was late at night, I was browsing KennedyAuto.com when there was a knock at my door.
Hey, baby, what you doing?
Buying a car from John Kennedy Ford.
Online?
I let her in on the secret. KennedyAuto.com makes car buying easy. That got her attention.
Can I go for a ride?
Let me get my coat. KennedyAuto.com. Enjoy your ride.
My name is Fran Salerno, and I'm managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Welcome back. This week in pro football, Pat Callahan joining you here on JAKIB Sports as we wrap up our week 4 episode here relative to the National Football League. And who better to do it with? I see he has rejoined us. And that would be the great Gary Myers, longtime writer for the New York Daily News, the Dallas Morning News, and of course the author of, among many other books, Once a Giant. How you doing, Gary?
Good. You didn't need me during the commercial, did you?
No, Gary, but you cut it a little close there, Gary. I mean, I know
I was standing about.
I know you could do this stuff. You got that Taylor Swift-like attitude, but you got to be ready.
I was literally standing about 22 inches from my screen because my phone rang, but I was able to listen to you here when you went into the commercial, when you came out of the commercial, and I walked back 2 feet to my chair. I would never be late for you, Pat.
Fair enough. Fair enough, Gary. Appreciate that. Gary, did you know, I'm going to top you now this time, that I follow a gentleman called Kevin Gallagher on Twitter. He's a font of old school NFL information. And that the first regular season night game, primetime game between the Cowboys and the Giants actually occurred in 1969, which is before Monday Night Football started. Week 6, the Giants traveled to the Cotton Bowl and, of course, were blasted by the Cowboys 25-3. The Giants have always had trouble with the Cowboys, Gary. But did you know that was the first time these teams met under the lights?
No, I mean, you learn something new every day. You know, the Cowboys have dominated this, the Giants, especially lately.
Right.
But the one time in all these years since the Cowboys came into the league in 1960 that they met in the playoffs was 2007 when the Cowboys were the 1 seed. Right. Tony Romo spent the off weekend with Jessica Simpson and Cabo with Jason Witten.
I know.
The Cowboys came in as the Giants came in as the 5 seed, and they eliminated Dallas from the playoffs, even though Jerry Jones, in the days leading up to that game, had given out the tickets to the NFC Championship game, the players' allotment. He had already distributed them in the locker room, and they weren't worth the price of the paper they were printed on by the time the Giants finished up that game. But pretty much since then, I can't say since then because the Giants made it back to the Super Bowl in 2011. But I wrote this down. I mean, the numbers are staggering. The Cowboys have won 6 in a row in 13 out of 14 and 18 out of 22. I mean, that's amazing.
And then layer on top of that, Danny Dimes is 1-12 in primetime games. And
I didn't realize he's played that many primetime games because he's been hurting most of the time.
Be there for the New York Football Giants, but they are coming off a good win, albeit against the Deshaun Watson-led Browns. But a win's a win, and we'll see what the Giants can do if they can hold serve against that. Hey, let's start with that, Gary, if I might.
Okay.
And that is the drama in Dallas. Now, you spent a number of years in Dallas with the Dallas Morning News. You wrote a book on the Cowboys, and you know Jerry Jones fairly well. I followed Sal Paolantonio earlier in the show whether Jerry Jones, the owner, should be looking perhaps to once and for all fire Jerry Jones, the general manager, after the way he seemingly mishandled the signing of Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. Give me your thoughts on that whole drama and how it has resulted, Gary, in a non-existent running game for the Cowboys.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd have to think that if they had signed Prescott and Lamb much earlier in camp, if Jerry came forward with, an acceptable offer at that point, it would have lowered cap numbers, especially, for Dak, and it would have opened up some cap room to sign Derrick Henry.
Right.
Now, that being said, I am a huge believer that the cap is a bunch of, I guess we can say a bunch of crap on your show here, that you can sign anybody you want if you really want to. And you just create cap room by, turning
exchanging salary into bonus, right?
Exactly. And then you prorate the bonus. So they just didn't want to spend the money on Derrick Henry. It's not like Jerry said the other day they didn't have the money. It's not like Derrick Henry broke the bank. I can't recite to you right now his exact contract numbers, but it wasn't even close to what Saquon Barkley got. I mean, it was definitely less than $10 million a year, probably closer to $7 million. And, if they really wanted to sign him, they would have found the room, especially because they didn't have a running back. I mean, they got Zeke Elliott, and sitting on the practice squad is Dalvin Cook, who was horrendous last year for the Jets and the Ravens. So I think it went along, Pat, with this new trend of everybody thinks you don't have to run the ball anymore. You don't have to pay running backs.
Right.
And I think we've seen with what Harbaugh has done with the Chargers, at least, the first couple of weeks with J.K. Dobbins, that you got a good running game and a good offensive line.
Wow.
You can cover up for a lot of other deficiencies and win games that way.
Gary, you don't need to look that far west. New York Giant fans, I'm sure, only have to look 90 or so miles south and they see what Saquon Barkley is doing in Philadelphia.
Yeah, but let me just say this, Pat. He wouldn't have been doing that with the Giants because he never really – well, he's had a couple of good years with the Giants. But the Giants' offensive line doesn't compare to the Eagles' offensive line. He's seeing holes now that he didn't see in 6 years in New York or whatever it was. So,
but it bears at your point that if you invest in a running game, it will pay serious dividends for you. And I think you're right. A lot of teams have shoot it entirely, but very much to their detriment.
Yeah, the Giants tried. I mean, they drafted Andrew Thomas in the first round, and he turned out to be a great player. They drafted Evan Neal in the first round a couple of years ago, and to this point, he's been injured and a bust. So they've invested. They got a center they took in the second round last year. I mean, they've put some serious draft capital into trying to fix the offensive line. It just hasn't paid off the way they wanted. So, to say that what Saquon is doing in Philadelphia, the Giants are having second thoughts. All they should be caring about is they never built an offensive line like they did in Philadelphia. And the Giants feel if they had that kind of offensive line, they can get their production out of Devin Singletary, which is not correct because he's not anywhere near the player in the book.
And he's not a Saquon.
No.
But back to Dallas for a second, Gary. Mm-hmm. Dan Orlovsky on ESPN said that no team sets their quarterback up to fail more than the Dallas Cowboys. And what he was talking about was they don't run, they don't use a lot of motion. They obviously they don't have any kind of running game whatsoever. Right. And so everything then gets on the shoulders of Dak Prescott's ability to read and react, find CeeDee Lamb somewhere out in the secondary. Do you think there's, and of course this now you circle back to Mike McCarthy, and I know you've had some opinions on Mike McCarthy in the past. Is there just are the Cowboys in terms of organization, including the head coach, just fatally flawed at this point?
Well, to get back to one of your original statements about, firing, I don't know, did Sal say that or you said it about firing? Can Jerry Jones fire Jerry Jones, the general manager?
Yeah.
The drafts have been pretty good for the most part because Will McClay runs the drafts. And whether it was Jerry or his son Steven on these negotiations, they're obviously in lockstep, and they screwed this up. And making Dak wait. Now, I don't think he's a $60 million a year quarterback by any means. There's no way he should be the highest paid player in the history of the NFL when he's never been past the divisional round of the playoffs. Right. But they could have got that deal done a long time ago and used the extra cap room to fix other problems on the team. Mike McCarthy, he's proven in Dallas to be a really good regular season coach. They've won 12 games 3 years in a row, but just continuing the trend of every coach since Barry Switzer in 1995, the Cowboys have not been past the divisional round of the playoffs. I mean, it's it's almost unbelievable, Pat, that we're coming up on 30 years of the Cowboys not even getting to a conference championship game. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, that I think there's only like 3 teams in the league, maybe, or maybe 4 that haven't been to a conference championship game in the years that Dallas has been absent from that. And I don't know, to say that they haven't given Dak the support. Up until a couple of years ago, he clearly had the best offensive line in the league. He had 2 good running backs with Zeke and Tony Pollard. When Des Bryant was there, he was a really productive wide receiver. Jason Witten's last couple of years, not the final year in Dallas, but leading up to that, he was a really good tight end. I think he had Michael Gallup, who was a pretty good number 2 receiver. Then they bring in CeeDee Lamb, who's one of the 5 best receivers in the league. I think they've surrounded Dak for the most part with the proper personnel. It's whether the scheme and, like you mentioned, not a lot of motion and game management decisions. Right. I think that's been lacking.
All right. I just don't know, Gary, if there's an inertia in that organization, seemingly, other than the draft, that they just don't seem to react. And I don't know. I think this could be a long season in Dallas. Another NFC East team I wanted to get your opinion on, though, is another team that has been absent from the playoff picture in the last couple of decades, and that's the Washington Commanders. Now, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Washington's 2-1, and the 2 opponents they beat are a combined 1-5. But tell me your thoughts on this team right now. And they have new coach and a quarterback. Doesn't he remind you of Robert Griffin the way he is?
Very much so. I think he throws the ball better than Griffin did. And I know that was one of the problems that Mike Shanahan had with Robert is, he was not a polished drop back passer. And that's why he ran him so much and he got hurt. And that whole thing happened in the playoff game against Seattle. I thought it was coaching malpractice where they didn't take him out of the game until he actually wound up tearing his ACL. But what we've seen from Jaden Daniels, so far is, especially Monday night. I mean, that was amazing. Pat, in the last 2 games, the Commanders have scored on every possession. It was 7 field goals against the Giants. And then, what was it? I think 5 touchdowns and a field goal against Cincinnati. So other than the kneel downs at the end of the half, the end of the game, they've scored on all 13 of their possessions in the last 2 games, which is startling, especially with a rookie quarterback. I like him. It might be 2 years in a row that the best quarterback in the draft went after the first quarterback in the draft. Obviously C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young, it's no competition at this point. And to this point, Jane Daniels has been better than Caleb Williams, although I think Caleb Williams is going to be fine. But the comparisons to RG3 and the excitement and the enthusiasm and the energy that he's injected into that organization, very similar.
Right. I want to circle back now to Philadelphia, which is, of course, the area in which this show really premieres. And I wanted to get your opinion, Gary, again, something I talked with Sal about and something that a lot of people are vexed about here, and that is Coach Nick Sirianni's absolute unwillingness to kick a field goal. In a low-scoring game against the Saints, that was obviously going to be a low-scoring game. You're on the road, 14 seconds to go in the first half. He doesn't kick a field goal, and he ends up with no points on the board. And if it wasn't for Saquon, he'd have had a lot of questions to answer. So my question to you is, and it's not just Nick Sirianni, but it's around the league. What is it now about this 4th and 3, 4th and 4? Now it's automatic. You go for it. And do you think it's the right move to make?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, consider that in the Atlanta-Philadelphia game on, I think it was the Eagles' second possession of the game, Sirianni passed up a really easy field goal, and they wound up losing by 1 point.
Right.
And then last week, as you mentioned, a low-scoring game. I think they were down 3-0 towards the end of the first half. Passes up an easy field goal, goes for a 4th down, doesn't make it. Then on their first possession of the third quarter, he passes up another really makeable field goal, goes for a 4th down, and doesn't make it. And like you mentioned, Saquon bailed him out. Analytics has ruined baseball, and it's slowly ruining football because coaches are just not – I don't know what it is. They're looking at these stupid sheets that they have. It's somebody that went to Harvard Business School or whatever school has said, well, this year, but this percent chance of winning the game if you go for it on fourth down in this situation. They're not, Parcells always used to say, I go by what I see. And that didn't only mean who to play, but that was having a feel for his team at a particular point in the game when he made a decision whether to go for it on 4th and 1. He just wouldn't do it as a matter of course. It wouldn't do it indiscriminately. He would have a feel for the game and whether he felt the energy in his team that they were about to, convert that 4th and 1. I don't know what Nick Sirianni is doing.
Gary, because 4th and 1 is one thing, Gary, but 4th and 3, you just spent 3 plays and you can only get 7 yards. Now magically you're going to get it on 4th down. The best example, of course, is Dan Campbell, who went out of his way to lose the NFC championship this year against San Francisco because he wouldn't kick a field goal.
Yeah, Sirianni so far 4th and 4 from the 9, doesn't kick a field goal. 4th and 1 from the 15, 4th and 3 from the 34. Gives up 9 points.
Yeah.
The first 3 points in the game they lose by 1, and the other 6 points in the game those 6 points would have come in pretty handy.
A 60-yarder late in the game. He tries a 60-yarder, misses it, and the Saints end up scoring the go-ahead touchdown. I don't know.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked, and we haven't had a chance to talk about this. I'm shocked what Dan Campbell did in the championship game because Campbell grew up in coaching somewhat with Parcells because he played for him in Dallas, and Bill recognized the future coach in him. Then Sean Payton, who's the number 1 protege of Parcells, takes Dan Campbell to Miami. Sean's got a little more gambler in him than I think even Parcells did. But I'm not sure Sean would be passing up points in a 3-0 game, 2 times in a row.
Yeah.
And I don't know where this came from with Campbell, but he had a chance to really bury the 49ers a couple of times.
I know.
With those very makeable field goals. And I think coaches are just really outsmarting themselves. They're getting too much into the analytics.
I agree.
And not going by what they say.
I agree. Take the points. Take the points. I mean, the object of the game is to put points on the board. I don't know, but it's a crazy thing. But you're right. It's the analytics.
There's one other example that I thought of. The Giants-Eagles playoff game last year. So the Eagles go down the field on their first possession and score. And then the Giants have on their next possession, I'm not going to recite this exactly, but it was something like a 4th and 4. And it wasn't even necessarily field goal territory. Maybe it was from their own 40 or 35 or somewhere around there. And they went for it and missed, creating a short field for the Eagles who went down and made it 14-0. And Dable was telling his team, I don't think we can score with these guys. We can't, play field position because they're going to score every time. This is the Giants coming off the victory against the Vikings in the playoffs the week before. Right. So basically coaches have lost their mind. Yeah. That's how I look at it. And they all need in the offseason, I've said this many times about many coaches, they need to go to Florida, to Jupiter, or wherever Parcells is living now, and go to the Bill Parcells School of Clock Management and Game Management, because he was the best ever at this, and learn something about how to manage a game. Because no matter how much they want to say the game has changed, it really hasn't changed.
You're not kidding, Gary. And I'll tell you something else you and I will talk about in a future episode too. Is I never cease to be amazed at the absolute insistence of NFL head coaches that they carry as many timeouts in their pocket into halftime as possible. And how they'll let a minute and a half go off the clock in the last 2 minutes of the half, seemingly because they want to pocket these timeouts because they must be worth some money at halftime. They can turn them in for a free turkey or something. It's just ridiculous. But
maybe some of them think they can actually carry them over to the second half or to overtime. They're saving them. No, I agree with you. Yeah. The game management in the NFL these days is. How many times have you seen, Pat? How many times have you seen a coach let 10 seconds run off the clock and then he calls the timeout?
It drives me absolutely nuts, Gary. How coaches do that, and because they won't use a timeout, it's just nuts. But all right, listen, Gary Myers, I've kept you way late here, and my producer's going to yell at me, and I appreciate you taking all this.
We haven't even talked about the Giants Cowboys. Come on, Pat.
Well, we did talk about it, but give me a quick your quick thought here. Can the Giants, with that pass, and I'm telling you, Gary, their pass defense is not too good. Can they stay with the Cowboys in this game?
No, I mean, all the Cowboys have to do is double Malik Neighbors, and the Giants won't have it. I mean, he's really good, by the way. Yeah. I think the Cowboys are going to win this game, fairly easily. They're all ticked off about what happened Sunday, and I think they come in with a huge chip on their shoulder. And they always beat the Giants anyhow. I think they can win this game by 2 touchdowns.
All right, Gary Myers, thank you very much for taking this time. Thank you for finally making it back into that chair. I appreciate that. I know you're a pro.
I would never leave you hanging.
Never that, Gary. But thanks a lot for taking the time.
All right, take care. I'll see you soon.
All right, Gary Myers joining me there, and that'll do it for week number 4 of This Week in Pro Football. Thanks very much to Xander Krause for producing. Thank you for watching. And we'll be back. We'll don't forget, give me a follow on X at TWIPF Pat. I'll be commenting on the games throughout Thursday and Sunday and Monday. And we'll talk all about it next week on a week 5 edition of This Week in Pro Football. Bye.